Christian TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.
Hi, I'm Joe Sweeney. I founded the Acervo Project in response to the growing epidemic of human trafficking and child exploitation. Classifying this as an epidemic is an understatement. Our investigation teams and cyber analysts are tracking child predators every day. We're making a difference, but we need your help. The average age of a trafficked child is just 14 years old. Will you join the Acervo Project team? Donate $14 a month to protect the next at-risk 14-year-old. Pledge your $14 a month at theacervoproject.org. That's ASSERVO.org.
Welcome to Faith on Film with Isaac Hernandez and Holly McClure. Keeping you informed on faith and family entertainment.
Hello, Holly. How you doing today?
Hi, Isaac. Doing great. And I'm excited about our interview today.
Oh, me too. Because, you remember the popularity of the Jesus Revolution. Well, today we're going to take a look at just the slightly different side of that.
Absolutely. And, Jesus Revolution, the movie, has brought forth a lot of new fans and younger people and people who never even heard about it before. So really now more people than ever are aware of the Jesus Revolution.
Absolutely. But today we're going to talk about somebody who was really there. We're going to talk to Chuck Girard, who, of course, is one of the founding members of the gospel group. I say the gospel group is really a Christian rock and roll group.
It was.
Love Song. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about the movie and the movement itself, but also about a documentary that's being done on the band, Love Song.
And we love it.
Here we go.
It was a time of change. God's Spirit swept across the country.
Well, let the people know Jesus is the Lord.
I just remember that God was moving.
Every generation needs a new song to express their faith in a new way.
You could feel the presence of God in the music.
Love Song was a band that was a bunch of hippies in the right place at the right time.
Their songs would become part of the soundtrack of the Jesus movement.
The music of Love Song was part of the soundtrack of the last great American revival.
Jesus puts the song in our hearts.
Their music would inspire a generation of new believers.
I'm not really sure that I would be doing what I'm doing today if it hadn't been for Love Song and that record.
Love Song would help launch a new genre of music and ministry.
Just like the British invasion was not possible without the Beatles, the worship invasion would not be possible without Love Song.
I think that we successfully communicate the gospel very effectively through music. That's to me what Love Song has always been about.
And then the rest is pretty much history.
It is my great honor to induct Love Song into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Love you guys.
Love Song, the band, the ministry, the movement.
Chuck, welcome to Faith on Film.
My pleasure.
Welcome.
I tell you, very exciting for me. And I don't know, Holly, if you were a big fan of
yes.
Love Song, but I got to tell you, I had been a big fan of Love Song when I was a teenager, and I hope that doesn't make you feel too old, Chuck.
I love it. I love it.
I went to a concert when I was 16, 17 or something like that. I went to a concert at Knott's Berry Farm and absolutely just loved you guys. So very exciting for me to have you on here today. Now, there's a lot of things to talk to you about, but one of the first things maybe that I'd like to have you share with us is your involvement in the Jesus Revolution. And I don't mean necessarily the movie, although obviously Love Song, I think, played a pretty major part of that movie. But really your involvement in the actual Jesus Revolution era or time.
Right. Well, the exciting thing is that the Irwin brothers have a great respect for our position in Christian music. And in the documentary they did called The Jesus Music, we were, Tommy, my bandmate Tommy and I were the only kind of 70s guys interviewed in that film. And then they actually could have made the band in the Jesus Revolution kind of a generic hippie band, but they actually called it Love Song. And so that's been very good for us in that regard. And we were really, really grateful to the Irwins for recognizing that. But yeah, I lived the movie. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, we started out way back. I became a Christian in February of 1970. And we went in, we were going to meetings with Lonnie Frisbee. We loved Lonnie. We thought, man, that guy looks like Jesus. And then we thought, well, we look like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And we have these cool songs. Maybe the pastor would let us play. So we went into the office on a weekday and we asked to meet with him. And he was very gracious, Chuck Smith. He took us out to the sanctuary. And it was kind of a polite interview, you know, almost dismissive because, not because he wasn't interested, but I think he figured we were going to ask him something. And he knew we were only three weeks old in the Lord or so. So at the end of this interview where we kind of just gave our testimonies, he said, well, play me a song. So we played a song called Welcome Back. And it didn't even relate to him in any way lyrically, but the Holy Spirit really fell and he felt it. That's what Chuck's forte was. He wasn't a music critic. He knew when the anointing was there. Mm-hmm. So the next thing he said was, can you guys play tonight? Lonnie's preaching and it's youth night. So we said, well, is the service at 7 like usual? And he said, yeah. And we said, well, our guitar player, Fred Field, is doing weekends in Orange County Jail. So we'll have to go get him, but we can make it. So we got Fred out of jail and we played that first night. And that was the beginning of the big explosion. Not because of Love Song, but just I think all the elements were in place. The hippies were telling their friends about this cool church where they had, you know, modern music. And the church grew from about 200 to 2,000 in about 4 months' time and entered the tent at that point. They had no place to, you know, the fire marshals were coming in. All the aisles were blocked, which is illegal. So they were clearing the decks and all that. So Chuck decided, you know, we don't have time to build a sanctuary, so we'll put up a tent. And those were the tent meetings, which were awesome experience. It held about 2,000. You could open the flaps in the back and put in another 500 seats. But they were incredible meetings in that tent.
Did you have a chance when you watched the movie, were there scenes out of that movie that you were there or related to?
Well,
like the baptism, I'm thinking, in Pirates Cove. Sorry. I'm thinking like the baptism in Pirates Cove or things like that.
Yeah, I had attended baptisms, but actually, ironically, we were there the day they filmed that. We came on set. We were down there. We were doing this documentary, which we'll talk about later on the band Love Song. And so we thought we might get some B-roll down there, and the Irwins said we could come down, so we were able to be there. And they actually filmed us up on the hill. They said they were going to put an Easter egg in the film, but I don't think they did. Easter egg, for the people, I'm sure most people know, is a little something that's maybe not really part of the movie, but insiders can recognize it's a tribute to something. So, like I say, we had a great time there. But yeah, I met my wife at a baptism, so that's special to me. And they did a very good job recreating it.
Wow.
Now, I mentioned something about Knott's Berry Farm here at the very beginning, and having been at that concert, all I could remember was, man, there's a lot of people here. Tell us a little bit about that concert, because I just kind of want to go back in time in my mind.
Yeah, that was incredible. Well, we had been our record originally was not distributed by Christians. We were on a Christian label, but it was distributed by United Artists. So the representative from United Artists would send the LPs to all the different, countries in the world, and then the local guys would choose the singles. Well, the guy in the Philippines chose Lend an Ear to a Love Song, and it went to #1 in Manila, and opened up the door for us to go over there. And we did 5 nights in Rizal Stadium, where the Beatles had been 6 years earlier, and packed it out every night. Thousands, tens of thousands of people came to those concerts. It was called the Love Song Festival, and it actually occurred on Valentine's Day, and I think 1972 was the year. So meanwhile, back in the mainland, the grandson of Knott's, the original Knott's people, was a Christian. And he heard about it, and he thought, why don't we do that here at Knott's? So they did. They put it together. They called it the Love Song Festival, same name we had in the Philippines. And we headlined, and there were other bands there that night. And it was sort of the first Christian night in any amusement park that had ever happened. Well, they sent the crew home. They thought, this is going to be a slow night, take the night off. Well, whatever time the park opened, about 6 o'clock before the park opened, the cops called Knott's. They said, what's going on there? There's a line 2-3 miles long trying to get in there. And that night we broke park records. They had to call employees back, get back here. This place is slamming. You have to get back to work. And it was an exciting, wonderful time. And it was the first one. Then we did one 2 years later with Phil Kagi. And then they changed the name after that. And they became, I don't know, Christian Celebration Festival or something. And but the first couple, three were Love Song festivals. So, yeah, it was another first for us.
That is great. And really, a lot of people don't remember that era or that time, but that, definitely was what launched Christian music. I for years, I was with KKLA in Los Angeles, and we did concerts out at Knott's Berry, and they did, dedications and things. And of course, this is years after. This is when Jars of Clay and Mercy and all those others started off, But I mean, to go back, what Isaac is talking about, that was really kicking off this whole era of amazing music that I think people have forgotten about. Some have, but some haven't. Have you noticed fans still connecting with you after the movie now?
Well, more than ever. I mean, my daughter is Elisa Childers. Some people might know she's was in Zoe Girl, but now she has begun writing books on apologetics, and she's become very well known. And she said, well, before the movie, she'd do just to give you an example, she'd do a seminar, and she'd tell the story how her dad was in Love Song, and they'd all go, oh, that's cool. Now she says, my dad was in Love Song, and she says, these are college age students. She says there's an audible gasp in them. Oh, your dad was in Love Song, because all the kids dance the movie. So it's really upped our visibility and been very good for us in that regard, especially in the idea that we would like to get our documentary out to catch the wave on the end of the Jesus Revolution. So it's all working together for good for those who are called of God according to his purposes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was saying to Isaac earlier, this year, looking back at, when the Asbury effect came and the students were worshiping, and there was this whole Holy Spirit, drop in for a week or two or three, and then other churches were having it. And then the Jesus Revolution came out, and that was happening. We were talking about these things that have happened. Sound of Freedom's just come out. There's a new movement now of Christians picking up. So I love how God is, continually this year we've been seeing it really step out with his people. And people are starting to rise up and have a voice and say, yes, God is present, and show their faith.
Amen. Let me say, take a minute to comment on the Asbury thing, because a lot of people have, anytime something new pops up, they call it the new Jesus movement is starting. And I have no criticism of any of those movements, but let me just say what the big difference was, in my opinion. Okay, Asbury and other type of revivals that have happened in Toronto and the one in Florida, Pensacola, were more based on charismatic events, people getting doused by the Holy Spirit, falling down and praying. The commonality of the Jesus movement, the original movement in 1970, was three things. We were there to learn the Word of God. We wanted to know the Bible. We wanted to worship. And we wanted to have our friends know about Jesus. So it was driven by different factors. And so basically, just to say, I don't necessarily look for the next Jesus movement. It'll be a movement, it'll probably called something else, but I don't think it's wise for people to try to duplicate something that happened 50 years ago strictly by the hand of God. Let's just wait and see what God's going to do brand new now, and hopefully it'll even be more influential and powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I have to confess, I got in trouble when I went to go see the movie at the theaters, Jesus Revolution. I had already seen a pre-screening at a conference that I had gone to, but I wanted to go and support it. So we went to the theater, and I got in trouble with my wife because I kept singing all the songs during the movie. And I have a tendency of doing that. But anyway, how about if we transition now into this documentary? There's a whole documentary being done on the band itself. In fact, there it is right there, a band called Love Song. Is the documentary out? Is it almost out? Can people see it?
Yeah, Let me give you the really postage stamp history. It started out in 2017 as to film a live concert, and we did that. And then when we started to produce the concert, we got some interviews from people like Michael W. Smith and other people who are Bob Bennett and Paul Clark. So we thought, well, let's interject those into the concert. So finished that. we had a little test showing in a living room, and a lot of the people came back and said, we'd rather see more old footage. We don't really, in a polite way, we don't really care about the old guys singing the songs. We want to see the vintage stuff, and we love the interviews. So we went into full documentary mode, and that was about 4 years ago. And we did some new shoots with different interviews. Governor Huckabee's in it. A lot of people, Michael W. Smith, and people that were affected by our ministry. But more important, its overview is that it's actually more the backstory of the Jesus Revolution movie, which was highly fictionalized in many ways, highly dramatized, I'll say, not fictionalized. And so our stories are what really happened behind the scenes. For instance, that story I just told you about playing at Calvary Chapel, in the movie, their Lonnie character comes in to Chuck's living room and says, I saw these guys in a coffee house and we're playing in Chuck's living room. Well, that didn't happen that way. In fact, I had a hard time with some of that stuff. The first 20 minutes of going, I was yelling at the screen. It didn't happen that way. Why'd you do that? Why'd you change that? And I realized it wasn't a documentary, and I enjoyed it from there on out. But ours is a real documentary. Now, where we're at with it, we're novice filmmakers. There's only one guy in our crew. That's the editor and the director. That is a professional. So we're all kind of, if you were doing this with Lionsgate, you'd say, when you get to the stage where you're looking for clearances, you'd say, send it to legal. Well, we're legal, right? So we're thrashing through all this stuff on our own, and it's been very, very difficult to figure out how to get all this done. And God's been sending us helpmates, people to, help us and advise us alongside us. Where we are at right now, one of the things we were counseled to do, we said, how long should we cut this? And some filmmakers said, just tell the story. Don't worry about how long it is and see where you wind up. Well, we wound up with 3 hours because we had amazing footage, and so much story to tell. So then we went to thinking episodic. We don't know if we can sell that, but where we're at right now is we have episode 1, which is about an hour long, is pretty much completely done. We haven't gone through clearances yet, so we may have to edit, take some songs out, whatever. But it's primarily done, and we're using that as a pilot to approach different companies to see if they're interested in distributing it. So that's where we're at, but it's still not close because that process of clearing stuff is really tedious and long, and everything has to be cleared in order for like a major distributor to take it. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and we're hoping, projecting with optimism, end of the summer, but I'm really think it's going to be more like the end of the year. Maybe we could get it out at Christmas or something, because I just see how long everything takes. But yeah, we're very excited. Let me say this about it. It's historically factual. It's top quality, and we're very proud of it. Many, hundreds, probably 1,500 hours have gone into the editing so far. And just making sure we have it's not just here's a picture of a guy talking. There's graphics, and there's cool old footage we found. We found this footage on the internet of us singing a song called Think About What Jesus Said, and we tracked down the owner of the film, and they had the original film.
Oh, wow.
So we were able to take it from this YouTube, 17th generation to, it looks like it was almost filmed yesterday. So we have a lot of cool stuff in there that is very historic and very rare. I'll tell you one quick story about some of the footage. In 1972, when we went to Explo, we took a guy along with a 16 millimeter, film camera. Well, he filmed the whole event, and we got back, and somehow those films got put somewhere in a room and didn't get even developed for 40 years. And when Chuck Smith bought our catalog, Calvary did back in around 2010, we got those canisters of film back, and we sent them to a lab, and they actually developed them. And we were able to see the footage for the first time in 40 years, and we've incorporated a lot of that into the film. So that's all kinds of never before found, never before seen footage. We found a Pat Boone documentary.
Wow.
Been done that had never been seen. Even Pat didn't know where it was. We went and met with him, and they finally found that. So there's all kinds of these little found gems. Now, the average person that's watching the doc, they just love it. They don't know the trouble you went through to find all that stuff or how rare it is, but we do. So for us, that part of it is going to be so wonderful. The historic, restoration and archiving of all this wonderful material that otherwise would be unseen.
I would think Greg. I would think Greg Laurie would want to be, help get this out, or people that were involved with you in those early days. I would think they'd be encouraging to help you get it distributed. Because honestly, Lionsgate just picked up The Chosen, and they're going to show season 1, 2, 3 of The Chosen on. Lionsgate, but they picked it up on CW. Yep. Who knew CW? Wow. That channel was going to carry it.
Well, Greg's aware of the film, and he had his hands full with his own film. He's told us once we get it done, he'll promote the heck out of it through his channels, which are they're quite influential channels that he has to do that with. I don't mean TV channels, but his methods of getting it out on social media and stuff. So he's aware of the film, and he's in it. So he has to get out there. But distribution is another story, and we're still going to talk to some of the majors and see. We haven't been at this point yet, so we're just now kind of crossing that bridge.
Right now, you also have a book that I don't know if you wrote it or somebody wrote it about you, but it's a book it's about your personal life beyond just the love song. Look at that, rock and roll preacher.
Yeah, well, I've never had the inkling to write my life story, and I felt prompted by the Lord to start, and it was back in the day there were no computers yet. So I started writing the story on yellow legal pads on airplanes. Well, you don't write every day. I write a little bit here, a little bit there. So years go by, and finally I put it in the computer, and I just wrote it what I call kind of just sort of stream of consciousness. I think of something in my life. I had some experience knowing Brian Wilson. So I wrote down everything I knew about Brian Wilson, and I put that aside. Okay, becoming a hippie. So at the end of it, I assembled it all, and I thought it was a pretty good read. I felt like the Lord wanted me to do it. There were so many times I wanted to drop out, because the honest truth is I don't care if there's a book on my life out. In fact, it's a little bit of an invasion of privacy, to be honest. But I felt like the Lord wanted me to tell the story. So we wound up the last 4 years, my wife and I painstakingly vetted stories. We were so fortunate that so many people, even in my pre-Christian days, I had a little group that had a couple of hits on the Billboard charts, and most of those guys are still alive. So I'd send the little chapters about that era, and I'd say, guys, what do you remember? What would you correct? Am I wrong here? And we vetted everything. Same thing with the drug. The drug years were the hardest. The old saying, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. But what we came up with, in my opinion, is it's sort of a version of, it is the backstory of the Jesus movie from my story. Now, the documentary is the viewpoint of all the guys in Love Song, but this is my story. And it's my personal testimony, but also a very great backstory to the Jesus Revolution movie. And you can get it on Amazon. That's the only outlet I know of for sure, but you can get it there. So it's Rock and Roll Preacher, and I'm very proud of it in a godly way. It's a good work. I'm satisfied with it. People say it's a good read. They really enjoyed it, and they went through it very quickly because they couldn't put it down. So I'm getting a lot of that. I wrote it, and my wife wrote it completely without a ghostwriter, to answer your question. So it's all me. And I also did the audio book. I painstakingly read the whole thing, and I think we sold 40 audiobooks so far. It's so exciting.
Well, good. It's good that people have that, because in their cars and stuff, they can listen to it. That's great.
Yeah. Now, a little birdie told me that there is a movie in development about your life. Now, not about the group, the band, but your actual personal life, which I guess is going to include those drug years. So that they'll remind you in that. But that little birdie just happens to be here with us. Let me see if I can bring her in here.
Hi guys.
Hello. Hi. Now, Susanna, you are the executive producer of this movie that's being developed on Chuck's story. I have to admit, I have read the script. Just fantastic script. And yes, it does go way deep into those drug years, if you will. Can you just kind of give us an update maybe on where you are? Because it's in development, which means it's not ready yet. You're not in production yet. But where are you with it?
Right. Yes, we're in development. And of course, the script is, as you said, is completed. And we are in the process of trying to secure funding still. It's been an interesting journey, because the script was written by my late husband, Peter J. Eaton, along with Chuck. And I mean, all, these things take time, and all the way from, they started actually writing it in 2016. I mean, this whole thing is really a God thing, just how it all started, and Chuck and my husband, meeting, and Peter was the driving force of this, because Chuck has meant his music meant a lot to my husband, and so he was very passionate about writing this script based on Chuck's book. So I, now, and he and my husband was supposed to direct it, but as you know, he passed away in January 2022. And so I just now feel like I need to help, Chuck in just carrying the torch and trying to move this film forward. So it is just about just securing the funding at this point and looking for a new director as well. Somebody who's going to, be as passionate as my husband was about this.
It's a great loss to me, because Peter and I had hours of conversation on how we wanted to make the movie. We said we don't want to make a Christian movie. We want to make a secular kind of movie about a Christian theme. We wanted to appeal evangelistically to non-Christians, and we were so in lockstep about the direction of the movie. And then when he passed, it was such a shock. And now to find somebody to fill those shoes, is very difficult, because we had such a vision for how we wanted the film to be. And, I think it's a great story. I think it might be one of the more interesting Christian films that could ever come out if we get it out. So we're just waiting on God. Here's my philosophy. I don't care if I have a movie out or not on a personal level. It's not, I'm not sitting here going, I got to tell my story before I die. And that's coming quickly, folks. I turn 80 in August. So.
Aw, you look great.
Wow.
But, I believe God could really use my story in a film.
Yes.
That's what we're pushing for it.
Yes, I just want to add to that. Currently, we do have a distributor and 2 other producers reading the script as well. So I was able to pitch the script to them, and they were very interested in that. So that's good.
That's awesome. Yep, that's very awesome. So Chuck, where can people follow you? How can they keep up with what you're doing? Do you have a website? You want to give out your email? Whatever you want to do. How can people reach you?
I have a very static website. By that I mean I don't think we've updated the itinerary in 2 years, but I'm trying to correct that. I'm very sorry about that. But it's a very interesting, deep website that tells about all my history and everything. And it's very easy to find. It's just chuckgerard.com. And then we have some Facebook connections also. There's the Love Song, going back to websites for a minute. I won't leave out the Love Song website. And if you Google Love Song, forget it. You're going to get everything from Neil Diamond to Elton John. But you put in lovesongtheband.com, lovesongtheband.com, and it'll keep you apprised of the latest developments in our documentary. And then we have a bunch of Facebook pages. I don't know, you just have to put my name in and find me. My actual personal page is topped out at 5,000, so it won't take any more people, but we have a fan.
Yeah, you got to go to the fan page
and follow it. So those are, and then there's my daughter does all the social media, and I don't know what Instagram even is, and I'm pretty computer savvy, but some of it doesn't interest me. But there's some stuff on Instagram, other social media platforms.
Well, it was a joy to have you on, Chuck. Thank you. What a pleasure to hear what you went through and to hear all the history, and excited to see what's going to happen, what God's going to do. And Susanna, with you, we just pray and hope that movie gets made and come back on and talk about it. We can't wait to see it and get a screening and be a part of that as well.
Absolutely.
Sure will. So appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
And folks, thank you for tuning in to today's show. We'll see you next week.
Write to us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Faith on Film TV. Also, go to our YouTube channel, Faith on Film TV, and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications on our latest Faith on Film shows.
Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.